everyone, welcome to Statecraft IS Academy. We have started a new initiative called the Daily Current Affairs Discussion, and this is the ninth video of that series. The PDF of this video is available on the Statecraft Telegram channel, Statecraft website, as well as in the description box of this video. So let's get started with the current affairs. The first topic of discussion is Vesak, which is also known as Buddha Purnima or Buddha Day. On 26th of May, we celebrated Buddha Purnima. So it is one of the most sacred day for the Buddhists around the world. This day is also considered as a triple blessed day, as it commemorates the birth, enlightenment and death of Lord Buddha. So all the three things has taken place on the same day. Next, Vesak falls on the full moon day, that is Purnima, on the month of Vesak. Hence, this occasion is also referred to as Buddha Purnima in India. Next, United Nations General Assembly, by its resolution in 1999, has also recognized internationally the day of Vesak, and it is done to acknowledge the contribution of Buddha made to humanity. Next, many devotees also visit Mahabodhi Temple, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is located in Bodh Gaya and Bihar on this occasion. And Bodhi Temple is the location where Lord Buddha is said to have attained enlightenment, which is also known as Nirvana. Next topic is Belarus. So recently, European Union has imposed sanctions against Belarus, including banning its airlines from using the airspace and airports of the 29-nation bloc European Union. So talking about the location of Belarus, so it is a landlocked country in the Eastern Europe, as you can see in the picture, and it is bordered by Russia to the east and northeast, Ukraine to the south, Poland to the west, Lithuania and Latvia to the northwest. Talking about the background history of Belarus, so in the aftermath of Russian Revolution in 1917, Belarus, Russian SSR, which became a founding constituent republic of Soviet Union in 1922. Only during the dissolution of Soviet Union, Belarus declared independence in 1991. And in 2000, Belarus and Russia signed a treaty for greater cooperation, forming the Union of States. And next topic of discussion is BioHub initiative. So it's an initiative of World Health Organization, and this BioHub will be a global facility for pathogen storage, sharing and analysis. So the sharing of pathogens is currently done bilaterally between countries, but this BioHub will expedite this process. Next, WHO and Switzerland have signed a memorandum of understanding to launch this facility. And this move is significant in the view of the novel coronavirus disease pandemic and the need to underline the importance of sharing pathogen information to assess the risk and launch countermeasures on time. Next topic is pediatric inflammatory multisystem syndrome. So it is also known as multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. It is a rare condition which is associated with SARS-CoV-2 infection. The cause is unknown, but it is thought to be a rare immune overreaction that usually occurs 4 to 6 weeks after mild or asymptomatic SARS-CoV infection. Some of the symptoms include fever, rash, eye infection, and gastrointestinal symptoms. Next, in some rare cases, the condition can also lead to multi-organ failure. Our next topic of discussion is International Day for Biological Diversity. So, this International Day for Biological Diversity is a United Nations sanctioned international day for the promotion of biodiversity issues. Talking about Convention on Biological Diversity, so this is one of the most important convention in environment section, and also it is important for the perspective of mains and prelims as well. So this convention was signed at the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. It is a legally binding treaty. One of the most important thing is it is a legally binding treaty, and it is dedicated for promoting sustainable development. There are 196 parties to the convention. Next, the three main objectives of the convention include conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of components of biological diversity, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. So the three main objectives include conservation of biological diversity, there's sustainable use of the components, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits among the countries. Next, CBD Secretariat is based in Montreal, Canada, and it operates under the United Nations Environment Programme. Biological Diversity Act of 2002 of India is also being enacted to give effect to the provisions of Convention of Biological Diversity. So the parties under the Convention of Biological Diversity meet at regular intervals, and these meetings are actually called the Conference of Parties, which is also known as COP. Next, some convention protocols and other initiatives include: first is Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. So it was adopted in 2000 and entered into force in 2003. It aims to ensure safe handling, transport, and use of living modified organisms. So it's important to note here it is associated with living modified organisms. So usually you can see questions related to environment wherein you're given match the following question, wherein different protocols and conventions are given, and on the left side it is given with which it is associated with. So in this case, for example, Cartagena Protocol is associated with living modified organisms, and next Nagoya Protocol is actually associated with genetic resources. So it's important to note other conventions and protocols as well. Now talking about Cartagena Protocol only, so it actually creates an advanced informed agreement procedure that requires exporters to seek consent from the importing countries before the first shipment of living modified organisms. And also it establishes an internet-based biosafety clearinghouse to help countries exchange scientific, technical, environmental, and legal information about the living modified organisms. Next is Nagoya Protocol. So it's also important to note that Nagoya Protocol was adopted after Cartagena. So Cartagena was adopted in 2000 and Nagoya was adopted in 2010. And it entered into force in 2014. Now the aim of the protocol is to share the benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources in a fair and equitable way. So the important terms here is sharing of the benefits from the utilization of genetic resources in a fair and equitable way. So it not only applies to genetic resources that are covered by the CBD, but to the benefits arising from the utilization, but also covers traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources that are covered by CBD and the benefits arising from its utilization. Next, talking about the Aichi biodiversity targets. So these targets were adopted by CBD at its Nagoya conference itself. And it is a short-term plan that provides a set of 20 ambitious yet achievable targets, which is collectively known as Aichi targets. So they can be divided into 5 parts. First is to address the underlying causes of biodiversity loss. Next is to reduce the direct pressure on biodiversity. Also to improve the status of biodiversity by safeguarding ecosystem, species and genetic diversity. Enhance the benefits to all from biodiversity and ecosystem services. Enhance the implementation through participatory planning, knowledge management and capacity building. Next we'll talk about BRICS Astronomy Working Group. So recently India virtually hosted the 7th meeting of BRICS Astronomy Working Group under the Science, Technology and Innovation track of BRICS 2021. So talking about the BRICS Astronomy Working Group, so astronomy was actually established as one of the 5 thematic science areas within BRICS, and the BRICS Astronomy Group was established in 2015. The group actually provides a platform for the BRIC members to collaborate in the field of astronomy. And recently it has recommended networking of telescopes in member countries and also creating a regional data network. Talking about BRICS, it is an acronym for grouping of world's leading emerging economies, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. So only in 2001, the British economist has coined the term BRIC to describe the four emerging economies that included Brazil, Russia, India, and China. But in 2010, South Africa was also invited to join the association, and after that, it was named as BRICS. So BRICS does not actually exist in the form of an organization, but it is actually an annual summit between supreme leaders of the five nations. And talking about the chairmanship, so it is rotated annually among the members in accordance with the acronym BRICS. That is, first it is Brazil. First the chairmanship is given to Brazil, then Russia, then India, then China, and then South Africa. And this is how the cycle continues. Next, the chair of BRICS 2021 is in India, and it will be the third time that India will be hosting BRICS summit. Talking about the cooperation mechanism, so it includes three types of cooperations. First is track 1, which includes formal diplomatic engagement between the national governments. So track 1 includes engagement between the national governments. Track 2 includes engagement through government affiliated institutes. So that include example state-owned enterprises and business councils. Track 3 actually includes civil society and people-to-people engagement. Next, talking about the New Development Bank. So, in 2014, during the Fortaleza Declaration, the leaders stressed on the need for the establishment of New Development Bank that will strengthen the cooperation among the BRICS and also contribute to collective commitments for achieving this goal of strong, sustainable and balanced growth. So the bank was established in 2015 by BRIC countries, and the aim was to mobilize funding for infrastructure and sustainable development. Next, New Development Bank is headquartered in Shanghai, that is in China. So important to know that the headquarters is in Shanghai. Next, talking about its ownership, it's actually unique and it is different from what World Bank has. In case of New Development Bank, the BRIC countries have an equal share and no country has a veto power. Next in the map you can see, wait a minute. Yeah, in the map all the pink marked countries include the BRIC countries. And as of 2015, the 5 BRIC countries represent over 3 billion people or around 42% of the world population. And all the 5 members are in the top 25 of the world by population and 4 are in the top 10. The 5 nations have a combined nominal GDP which is equivalent to approximately 20% of the gross world product. Our next topic of discussion is Buddha. So on May 26, Buddha Jayanti, that is also known as Buddha Purnima or Vesak, as we have read before. So the India's largest statue of reclining Buddha was to have been installed at the Buddha International Welfare Mission Temple in Bodh Gaya, but the ceremony got postponed due to COVID-19 restrictions. So talking about the reclining Buddha statue, so it was a statue or the image that represented Buddha during his last illness. When he was about to enter parinirvana, the stage of great salvation after death, that can only be attained by enlightened souls. So the statue or image of declining Buddha was showed him lying on his right side, his head resting on a cushion or on his right elbow. So this reclining Buddha statue was first depicted in the Gandhara art and also peaked during the Kushana period. Cave number 26 of Ajanta contains a sculpture of reclining Buddha, and this Ajanta caves is also one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Talking about other depictions of Buddha, so at the Mahabodhi temple, the Buddha is sitting in a Bhumi Sparsh Mudra. So that symbolizes earth as being the witness to his enlightenment. Next at Sarnath, where Buddha gave his first sermon, his hand gestures, the statue has a hand gesture called Dharma Chakra Mudra, which signifies preaching. So this is one of the most popular depiction in India. Next, while the sitting Buddha is believed to be teaching or meditating, and standing Buddha signifies rising to teach after reaching nirvana. Walking Buddha is either walking Buddha also shows either the beginning of his journey towards enlightenment or returning after giving a sermon. This walking Buddha statues are the least common ones and are mostly found in Thailand. Here, this image actually shows the various mudras, mudras of Buddha. So first, Bhumi Spashta Mudra. It actually invokes the earth as a witness to the truth of his words. Next is Vardha Mudra. It tells about fulfillment of beliefs and it is a gesture of charity. Next, there is Dhyana Mudra. So this gesture is of absolute balance or meditation. After that is Abhay Mudra, which is a gesture of reassurance, blessing or protection, and it also shows do not fear. Next, one of the famous mudras is Dharma Chakra Mudra. So this is a gesture of teaching, usually interpreted as turning the wheel of law. Vitarka Mudra shows intellectual argument discussion. And Tarjini Mudra shows threat warning. The extended index finger is pointed at the opponent. Next, Namaskar Mudra is a gesture of greeting, prayer and adoration. Next is Janan Mudra, that also means teaching. The hand is held at the chest level and the thumb and index finger again form the wheel of law. Next is Karan Mudra. So the gesture is with which demons are expelled. Wait a second. Now we have Keshapana Mudra, where two hands are held together in the gesture of sprinkling the nectar of immortality. The final one is Uttara Bodhi Mudra, the two hands placed together above the head with the index finger together and the other fingers intertwined. The gesture of supreme enlightenment. So it's important to go through the various mudras and know what these mudras implies. Next, talking about Gautam Buddha. See, as you all know, Buddhism is a very important topic in UPSC, and every year there is at least one question related to Buddhism in prelims. So it's very difficult to actually get all the related details in one PDF. I will be discussing about it in other videos, but here I'll discuss about Gautam Buddha. In the next videos I'll also discuss about Buddhism, and this is very important topic and all are requested to go through it in depth and revise this topic again and again. So talking about Gautam Buddha, he was born as Siddhartha Gautam in Lumbini near Kapilavastu, and he belonged to the Sakya clan. See, all these highlighted words are actually important for the prelims point of view. So he was born in Lumbini near Kapilavastu. He belonged to Shakya clan and he left his home at the age of 29. And this event was called Mahabishkarmana. Next, the idea of renunciation actually occurred to Buddha after he saw 4 different states of man. First was he saw a sick man, an old man, a dead man and an ascetic. So Buddha actually attained his enlightenment, or which is also known as nirvana, at the age of 35 under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar. Buddha gave his first sermon in the village of Sarnath near Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. So this event is also known as Dharma Chakra Parivartan, turning of the wheel of law. Next, he died at the age of 80 at Kushinagar, Uttar Pradesh. This event is known as Mahaparinirvana. So the important places here would be the place where he was born in Lumbini, which was near Kapilavastu. Next, the place where he attained enlightenment, that is Bodh Gaya in Bihar. Next is where he gave his first sermon after getting enlightened, which was in Sarnath near Varanasi, and it was termed as Dharma Chakra Parivartan. Next, the place where he died, which is known as Kushinagar, that is Uttar Pradesh, and this event is known as Mahaparinirvana. He is also believed to be the 8th of the 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu. As we all know that Lord Vishnu is believed to have 10 avatar, and he is supposed to be the 8th of the 10 incarnations. Next, Buddha believed in the 4 great truths. that is, the world is full of sorrow and misery, and the cause of this sorrow is desire. Pain and misery can be ended only by killing or controlling the desire, and the desire can be controlled by following the eightfold paths. So, the eightfold paths of Buddha is also known as Ashtamarga, which includes right livelihood, right observation, right determination, right action, right meditation, right exercise, right speech, and right memory. The three Ratnas of Buddha include Buddha, the highest spiritual potential in everyone, Dhamma, that is the teachings of Buddha, Sangha, the community of Buddhist monks and nuns were called Sangha. Next, talking about the teachings of Buddha, he stressed on karma and ahimsa. So, according to the law of karma, man reaps the fruits of his past deeds, which means that what happens to a person depends on his past actions and deeds. And talking about the concept of ahimsa, it means that one should not cause harm to any living being, animal, or man. And Buddha also said that when desire and rebirth ends, nirvana is attained. So nirvana is actually freedom from the cycle of birth and death, and rebirth is attained by the following the eightfold path. Next, he was against Varna system, and Buddha used to taught in Pali. Pali is a language. So all for today now. I'll discuss further about Buddha and Buddhism in my coming videos, and it is a very important topic, and it's very important to revise it again and again so as to know the different terms such as nirvana, parinirvana, also the old path, the eightfold paths of Buddha, three ratnas, the four great truths. Usually questions related to this comes, and also the locations where Buddha visited and important locations related to his life events. So we'll end the video here. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and thank you.